All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Larry DeWitt. Larry, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Great. How are you?
Good. I'm great. I'm great. Never better. Um, so yeah, our mutual friend, and I call him a knucklehead because I like to give the guy a lot of crap. Brian Pacenti recommended you highly, and I know you're coaching him. And so yeah, man, I just wanted to talk to you. And sounds like you won Leadman a couple different years, so of course I want to hear about that. That's a big deal, and you've been doing a lot of ultra stuff, ultra marathons, ultra cycling, all kinds of stuff. But I guess first and foremost, since you're coaching Brian, I'm curious. I'm a coach as well, and Brian's a coach as well. But how did you get linked up as a coach on TrainingPeaks?
Um, I just actually I don't remember. I wanted to get into coaching. It was kind of a side hustle because I had a full-time job, and I was already using TrainingPeaks as my my logging and all that kind of stuff. And then I got USA certified, and then I got started talking, just looking at the thing and saying, wow, I could do this on TrainingPeaks. I was using TrainingPeaks anyway for some of my athletes. And the biggest problem I had was, reminding them that they needed to make their monthly payment.
Yeah.
And, I saw that TrainingPeaks does that for you. I was sold.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that. I mean, I would guess most ultra endurance athletes that like to spend a lot of time alone in the mountains aren't the kind of people who, like to send reminders that, you owe me X amount of dollars. Yeah, same with me, man. Well, that's cool. That makes sense. And what benefits do you find? I'm not linked up with TrainingPeaks right now. I've talked to Brian about it a couple of times, and I know he is. But what benefits have you found as a coach being on TrainingPeaks? I'm curious.
The biggest one is they take care of all the billing.
Okay.
And for me, that's just super convenient. I just don't want to mess with that. And they advertise, and that's how Brian found me, was through TrainingPeaks.
Okay.
So I don't do any marketing, advertising, or anything. It's either word of mouth. I'd say probably half. And I'm keeping it small because I don't want this to be some giant business. I'm doing it because I like to do it. I love to do it, and I really want to get involved with the athletes that I'm coaching. So, but I'd say half of them were referrals from TrainingPeaks.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's just another avenue right there that I should probably look into at some point. All right. Well, Larry, thanks for doing this, man. Obviously, the name of the podcast is Do Big Things, and you have done some big things in the past, but I want to do some fact checking here. Like I tried to do a little bit of research on you, and I want to make 100% sure that I have the same Larry DeWitt. So, obviously you did, you were the Leadman champ 2 different years. You did Tour Divide, and you did a million other races. I want to hear all about them, but going back to growing up, tell me if I'm wrong here. You grew up in a dysfunctional family, occasionally juvenile delinquent, high school dropout, periodically homeless. And then suddenly, okay, you're nodding your head. Yes. Perfect. So I'm on the right track.
I mean, the homeless part is, they called it runaway back then, but today that it's homeless. But yeah,
right.
I was sleeping under bridges and hitchhiking around the country and that kind of thing. So,
or transient, I've heard is the nice way to call it too. But then, so I do want to hear about that. But then, based on what I was reading, it looks like there was a complete 180. It looks like you returned to school, you ran on the cross country team, you graduated on the honor roll, then you joined the Army, you earned 3 degrees, and then you started your illustrious ultra career. So, I mean, I definitely want to hear about the past and how it all started, but like, what was that 180 flip right there? Like, what happened that completely turned you in the other direction?
It was just an epiphany, I guess. kind of a funny story, I guess, or I don't know. So I was over at a friend's house. I lived on the north end of town, Akron, Ohio, and we were over at his house, south end of town, doing drugs. And I don't know, it was probably midnight or so. And for whatever reason, I decided I need to go home and get my toothbrush. And so I'm walking through town, I'm going through the red light district, and where all the drug addicts and the winos and the prostitutes are. And I just sat there and I looked at all these people and I said, if you don't get your crap together, this is your life. And, I went back and asked if they'd take me back. I'd been kicked out of school, and asked if they'd take me back. And they said they'd take a chance with me, and I turned things around.
Yeah, you really did. I mean, if you don't mind getting into it, tell me a little bit about your family life growing up. I mean, it sounds like it wasn't ideal. Might have been a little bit hard, but can you give us some details there?
And I don't want to get too much into it, but
okay.
But yeah, basically, I had an abusive dad, and he walked out. I'm not sure how old I was, maybe 11 years old, after putting me in the hospital with broken ribs. And my mom, she tended to like the guys that drive Harleys, and she worked at a strip club, and she had some pretty rough boyfriends that were a lot of drugs in the house. And that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Sure.
I don't want to get into too much detail, but
no, that's perfect. And I can respect that for sure. So yeah, it sounds rough for sure, but and then you said you just kind of made up your mind, like, if you don't get your crap together, you're going to end up like these guys. Like, you make it sound so easy. Like, and so were you still high school age when you made this decision?
Yeah.
Or?
I think I was maybe 15.
Okay.
And,
so that's pretty
I
young.
went back to school. I remember watching a football team, and I said I could do that. And so I joined the football team, got my butt kicked. It was like, oh, give the ball to the druggie, And then I went out for track, mainly to get my speed up for football. And we had some amazing sprinters. We had a guy that broke Jesse Owens's 220 yard, back then it was yards, record. He did a 46 flat, or 46.2, 440. And our mile relay team, the slowest guy was 49 flat on a 400. And so I got thrown over, you go over there with the long distance guys. And so, I did, and started running. And I think my first track meet was a 2 mile, or it was a 2 mile, but I don't think I'd ever run 2 miles in my life at that point. Matter of fact, I think I even still smoked cigarettes. And the first race was in a snowstorm. I finished it. I was actually fairly close to the front.
Nice.
And I just loved it. And then, I just ran and ran and ran. That was my escape from everything. So,
yeah.
And the more I ran, the better I got, and the more I loved it. So.
Okay. That, it sounds romantic. It sounds like a cool story. Like, I think of, I don't know if you've ever read the book, like Once a Runner by James Parker, I think it is, but that's sort of what it reminds me of is high school kid just finding solace in running, and, after school, going out and running double-digit miles almost every day, and still in high school. I mean, is that kind of how it was for you? And was this 180 flip that you were making just like a slow progression? You said you still smoked cigarettes while you were running track. Did that stuff fade away?
Yeah, that didn't last long after track.
Okay.
It pretty much, that was kind of like right at the beginning.
Okay.
But yeah, you can't smoke and run track.
No. Okay.
And it was
So,
just a cold turkey. I remember I was talking to my cousin. I said, after this pack, I'm going to quit. And he said, "You've said that a million times. Either do it or shut up." I said, "All right, I'm done." And that was it.
yeah, that's cool. And running just took over at that point.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So your high school age, you're trying to live your life for the better and sort of recognize your full potential, maybe. Yeah. So like, what did it look like in those days? I mean, were you still living with your family? Was your relationship with them sort of sorted, or what was that like?
Oh, I don't want to get into the details there, but yes, I was still living
Okay.
at
Okay.
home. However, I was totally on my own. I mean, there was drug parties going all night long. There's, just it was just in and out, people going in and out, like a revolving door, people coming in and, just drugs and drugs. And I would actually sleep down in the basement in the bottom of, in a pile of dirty clothes. So I wouldn't have to be disturbed. I'd be on my own going to school. I would actually sometimes, we're getting in more detail than I want to, but I'd actually, there would be nothing to eat. And I would, on the way to school, I'd go way out over in another neighborhood or something and go into a 7-Eleven and grab like a box of cereal and a quart of milk and run out the store so I could eat breakfast.
Wow.
So yeah, but I made it through school.
Yeah, you made it through school. Well, yeah, and I don't want to dig, and I appreciate you sharing what you did, and then after school, you joined the Army. So I'm guessing you were sort of looking at that as a means to escape.
Yeah. I was, talking to University of Akron about running track there. And, I just started thinking, hey, that's not going to work out. It just, it's just not going to work. And so I went to our school counselor and said, I'm not so sure about college. And she just happened to be dating the Army recruiter. And she's like, "Oh, well, let's get you hooked up with Sergeant Ritchie." And so I talked to him and he says, "Well, you join the Army, you can run, you can go to college, and you can get paid for it." So I'm like, I'm sold. Yeah. I can't wait to get in. So it was kind of true.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it must have been the right decision for you at the time, because if I read right, you were in the Army for like 15 years.
Oh, no. 6 years.
6 years. Okay. So I have that wrong. Okay. But yeah, I mean, so you're in the Army, you're running. Are you running like on a team on the Army?
I was running. I ended up going with the 101st Airborne Infantry, and but I ran, I would even in basic training when we were done, I would be running around. We were limited to where we could go, basically the barracks, and I would be just running around the block after we were supposedly done for the day, and everybody thought I was nuts. And I got to 101st, and I set some records, on their 10-mile force march course where you go with full weapon gear, blah 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 blah, and it's 10 miles, and I just loved it. I would actually run, they had PT every morning, and I would always run 5-6 miles before PT. And and then, I got involved wherever I happened to be stationed. I got involved with the running clubs. And then when I was in Germany, and that's probably where you read the 15 years. I was in Germany for 15 years.
Okay.
But got to Germany, hooked up with a running club there, a track team, and met some of my best friends ever, and ran track for a German track team, which was very cool. And I got out and stayed in Germany and continued to run until I was injured, and then I got into cycling.
Okay. Is it fair to say that you were obsessed in those days, or was it just like an extreme? Still am obsessed. Okay. like, what is it about running and endurance sports that hooked you in? Is I mean, for some people, they're running because it's almost like a mental escape or a therapy or a meditation, or some people just like the physical movement. What is it for you that really does it for you?
Might be all of the above. I love the feeling of being in shape. You know, I just love the feeling of being in shape, and I love being able to just go out there and do things you could do when you were a kid, you know, riding a bike, you know, mountain biking. And, you know, it's just amazing. You got friends. I was thinking about this the other day. We were out, you know, riding some trails and just hammering and having a blast. And, you know, we were all between 50 and 60 plus years old. And, you know, we were like teenagers, you know, and, you know, maybe we're not as fast or, you know, as we used to be, but the effort's there and the adrenaline's still there. It's all, you know, it's just, you know, it's like being a kid again all the time.
Totally. I get it. I love it. I know when I'm on my mountain bike, that's exactly how I feel. Like I'm just a kid on the trails, and it's such a good freeing feeling. How old are you now, Larry, if you don't mind saying?
64.
64. Okay. And so you're still doing a lot of biking and mountain biking. Are you still able to run, hike at all, or is it mainly just biking these days?
Right now it's biking. I have a hamstring issue that I've been working on, and I'll go out and test once a week. But normally I mostly run in the winter, and you know, they have a winter series racing here in Colorado Springs, and you know, I might do a marathon or something in the spring. And I do a lot of pacing and crewing for especially at Leadville.
Cool.
And you know, so usually in the winter I run, but you know, this year I've been dealing with a hamstring injury, so I'm just riding.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you start racing? Did that happen after you got out of the Army, or were you racing while you were in the Army still?
Well, I started in high school, and then you know, while I was in the Army, yeah, I did a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks, and then eventually marathons.
Okay.
While I was in the Army, I actually qualified for the well, I forgot the program they call, but basically the Army marathon team, I guess. And I was, you know, would have been able to go to California, I think Berkeley, and train there. But there was a caveat: I had to re-enlist, and I didn't want to do that. Got it. You know, the Army makes a lot of promises, and they don't always keep them. So I wasn't. So I just didn't trust them. So
okay.
Because one of the things that led up to that is my first marathon ever was in Germany, and I qualified for Boston. And our commander was a runner, and he says, "Oh, you're going to Boston. You know, we're going to give you you know, time off and da 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 da." Well, he left, and another commander came. And when I went up and said, you know, I'd like to go to Boston. I'd like to, you know, take a leave and go to Boston. He says, "No, you're going to the field." And, you know, so that was kind of one of the reasons I didn't trust.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So what was your first marathon time? Do you remember? It's a BQ. Must have been fast.
It was, yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. I hardly ever remember times.
If I
ran a 10K last week and you asked me what it was, I probably wouldn't remember, but I would say it was probably in the 250 range.
Wow. For your first marathon. That's pretty fast. So, okay. So, you got out of the Army, and then what did life look like for you? Were you just like finding fellow run clubs and running with them, or did you pursue the marathon time, or what did life look like then?
Yeah, I was running with Bamberg track team. Had great friends there. Was running 5K or 5,000 meter, 10,000 meter. We had a couple guys. So in order to go to the German national championships, at least back then, you had to run a sub 30, a 10,000 meter. And I was not eligible because I wasn't German. So I would rabbit for teammates and stuff. And, basically run myself into the ground and try and get them guys under 30. So that's what I was doing. And then, there were meets where I could go out and compete all out, that weren't qualifiers for whatever.
Okay.
And I started running some marathons and so pretty much 10,000 meters, 10Ks, cross country marathons is what I was doing.
Okay. Okay. And you're going to school at this time?
I was going, getting a degree in, computer science and working.
Okay.
I was working as a, So back in the day, there was this thing called the ARPANET, which eventually became the internet. And so when ARPANET came to Europe, I was basically a network analyst or working the help desk, and I worked my way up to being the lead network analyst in Europe. And the rest is history.
Okay. But you are a teacher, from what I understand, or do you work at a high school or no? Okay.
No, I stayed in the IT
You did?
industry, and I just recently retired, and I was working AWS cloud. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically cloud.
Okay.
Everything's in the cloud these days.
Sure. Yeah.
And migrating engineering cloud solutions for government agencies and corporations and stuff like that.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. And so that was your career, and you said you just retired recently.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Well, when did the really long races start coming into your, rolling around in your head?
Well, the marathon was my favorite race when I was running, back then when I was young and competitively. It just seemed like the longer the race, the better I did.
Okay.
And then I got injured. I was actually trying to make the Olympic trials, and I just overtrained.
Oh.
And it tore an Achilles tendon. And then I kept going back and forth, trying to come back too early. Now I was just having one injury after another: knee, hip, whatever, back, and that went on for a couple years. And I was in the locker room, and this one guy, losing my voice here. So,
Oh, you're good.
this one guy who would ride to work on his bike every day said, "Hey, you ought to try riding a bike while you're healing. That way you can stay in shape." So I started riding a bike, and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome!" And I started to actually, started commuting back and forth to work. I did a couple bike tours. I went to East Germany and Czechoslovakia, Poland. The day before the wall went down, I went to East Germany. And did Yugoslavia. A couple of us did the perimeter of Ireland, and was doing that, and I just was loving it. I like, biking is way too fun. I wasn't going to get into racing. I said, this is too much fun. I'm not going to ruin it by doing intervals and hill repeats and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then when I came here to Colorado, I hooked up with some guys going mountain biking. They're like, "Dude, you need to race." And so I jumped into a race, and then it's like, oh man, this is fun. And then I got back into the intervals and the hill repeats. But it was the same thing. It seemed like the longer the race, the better I did.
Okay.
And then I heard about this race called Leadville, and it was the second year they had the mountain bike race, and I had no clue. I just drove up there. Back then there was no lottery because there was only a handful of people in it.
Sure.
I just drove up there, signed up the day before, camped in the back of my truck, got up, had, a full pack with all my food and everything, got on the starting line and finished. And when I finished, I was like, that's the hardest thing I ever did in my life.
Mm.
I just had no clue what I was getting into. I just went out there and did it.
Yeah.
And so Leadville became an obsession. I think I've done it, the bike race, I don't know, somewhere between 12 and 15 times, I guess.
Whoa. Wow. 12 and 15 times. And you've been doing the run too. How many times have you done the Leadville 100 run?
I've got 3 finishes and 1 DNF.
3 finishes. So, okay. 1 DNF. And 2 of those finishes must have been Leadman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, all 4 attempts all 4 were Leadman. So that's how I got back into running. I hadn't ran for years.
Ah.
And then they started this Leadman. I heard about the Leadman. I was like, well, kind of goes back. I was crewing and pacing a guy, and at Leadville, and so it was in the back of my mind. It's like, I'd like to do this someday. Although, I mean, he was puking, and it was ugly. But I was like, I'd like to do this someday, but I don't want to give up biking. And then there was Leadman. I'm like, well, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And so I hooked up with a group called CRUD here in Colorado Springs, stands for Coloradans Running Ultra Distances. And what a great group those guys were. They were so fun. And, we do all these long runs into the mountains, and just had a blast. Again, like being kids, we stop and explore caves or old mining ruins and stuff like that. And it wasn't just serious running all the time. It was out there just being kids and exploring and having fun.
Yeah.
And so signed up for Leadman, did the marathon, and then
how old were you at this time? Your first Leadman?
Oh geez. I was in my 40s for sure.
Okay. And
but it was like 3 or 4 days before the Silver Rush. My mother-in-law, well, she had liver cancer, and it just went south. And she actually, we tried to get in Germany. And so we flew to Germany, and this is like 3 days before Silver Rush. And we didn't get there in time. She passed away before we got there. But so I missed Silver Rush, so Leadman was pretty much out. But I went ahead and did the rest of it.
Okay.
And I can't remember. That might have been the second one. I don't remember. There was the first one. Yeah, the first one, I did Collegiate Peaks 50 as a warm-up race.
Nice.
And I got I did well, but afterwards my knee was just shot, and that's like in May sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I couldn't run, and so I was just doing the bike, and I think I went to about middle of June, and finally I was like, I got to do something about this. I can't run. And so I went to a chiropractor. Actually, I was riding with a chiropractor, and I was telling him about my knee. And he says, well, you need to see me. I said, you're a chiropractor. He says, I'm good. I said, okay. So I went and saw him, and he fixed it. And so I started running again. I was trying to catch up, probably too much. And by the middle of July, I was, it was after the marathon. Yeah, it was that same year. So it was after the marathon, and then I was injured again. And it was the same week. So I did the mountain bike race, and I didn't do the 10K. And then I still couldn't run. So I went back to the same chiropractor, thinking either he's really good or he was lucky. And he worked on it, kneaded the crap out of it, and said, get on the starting line, see what happens. So really from May to the start, I probably ran 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks.
Wow.
That was all the running I did. And that was my first 100 ever. And that was Leadville. And it took me 5 hours to get from May Queen to the finish.
Oof.
My pacer, who was the guy that I paced that got me into this in the first place, said I even fell down in slow motion.
But you were moving pretty slow at the end.
Very, yeah. But I, I was going to finish no matter what. So
yeah. And I mean, you still won Leadman that year though, right?
No, because and I didn't do Silver Rush.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
do the 10K.
Gotcha.
And so I think it was the second time. Yeah, the second time. And then the third time, which was 2009, I believe. I had it in my mind, but I didn't tell anybody that I was going to try and get the big belt buckle in both, which nobody had ever done, or at least not Leadman.
Okay.
But I didn't say, I don't even think I told my wife.
And so for anybody listening, that is sub 25 hours on the run. And what is it on the bike?
Sub 9.
Sub 9 on a 100-mile bike ride. Okay.
So, and the sub 9 on the bike, I'd done plenty of times. And,
okay.
The question was the run.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I pulled it off.
But you pulled it off and won Leadman.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. How many people were competing in the Leadman that year? Do you remember?
I think they cut it off at 50, if I remember. I think they allow more now, but I think back then 50 was the limit.
Yeah. Okay. And was your strength at that time the mountain bike?
Yeah, it always has been.
Always has been. Yeah. So you crushed on the mountain bike. Did you always skip the 10K race, or did you ever do that?
No, I had done it the previous year.
Okay.
Because you got to do them all, to win it, or to even be considered a finisher.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there 5 different events and you have to choose 4 of them?
Back then, there were 4.
Okay.
And they added the 50. They added the Silver Rush run.
Oh, gotcha.
So it was the marathon, the 50-mile mountain bike race, Silver Rush, the 100-mile mountain bike race, the 10K, and the 100-mile run.
Got it.
And then they added the Silver Rush run later.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, so the 10K, you just it's kind of funny. So they have a dog division. Dog category. And so I have a dog. Yeah.
For the 10K? So you can run with your dog?
Yeah. And they actually have award ceremony for the dogs, and my dog won.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so when I went back the next year, I wanted to make sure it sounds kind of stupid, but I wanted to make sure that my dog was a repeating champion.
That's cool.
10K pretty hard.
Nice. Do you still have dogs?
Oh yeah.
I'm a dog guy too. That's cool. So I'm guessing, if mountain biking was your strength, I'm guessing you just crushed the mountain bikes, and then the runs, you were just kind of hanging in there, but you must have had some talent because you had some pretty decent finishing times. I mean, I think one of them was 24, and I mean, you had a couple 25 sub 25s, didn't you?
Just the one.
Okay.
The one that took me 5 hours to get from May Queen. I think I was around 27 something, or probably closer to 28, or in the 28s. And then I don't remember what the second one was. And then that one was 24:10. I was a little disappointed. I wanted to try and make it a one-day event.
Yeah. 10 minutes.
But it just everything clicked that day.
Yeah.
And there was probably my lowest point was coming into May Queen during that time, but my son was there who had just come back from Iraq. And, one of the things that I always wanted to do is be a good example for my son. And, he's like, I was in any event, any race, any long distance, no matter how hard it is, one of my goals is to always be upbeat, positive, and nice to the crew. Because I've seen some people just destroy their crews, and it's like, why?
Right.
But and I was kind of down, and my son picked up on it, and he's like, "Dad, you got a whole hour to play with, and you could walk and still make the cutoff." So, and just by him saying that, and him being my son, just boom, it just completely, changed my attitude. And I pretty much ran the whole way in.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So based on your times with the Leadville 100 run, it sounds like you went out a little bit hard. Well, especially like the time that it took 5 hours from May Queen to the finish. You must have gone out really hard, blown up miraculously, and then had a really slow walk into the finish. But I mean, if you finished in 27, 28 hours with a 5-hour walk at the end, it sounds like you must have hammered pretty hard for the first half of the race.
Yeah, I had no clue what I was doing.
Sure.
Yeah, just, what do they say? If you feel comfortable, you're probably going too fast.
Yeah. And so doing these Leadmans is I don't know if that's exactly what led to, but you've done a whole bunch of other races, a lot of biking, a lot of running. 2018, it looks like you did the Tour Divide. I'd love to hear about that.
Oh, that was awesome. That was epic.
Yeah. Is that something you had wanted to do for a long time?
Yes. I read a book by Jill Homer, and that, I'd always had it in the back of my mind. And then I read Be Brave, Be Strong by Jill Homer. And that just right there.
You know what? I just had Jill Homer on the podcast. In fact, it's going to be released tomorrow morning. So it's funny that you mentioned that.
Anyway, that
totally cool.
That book just totally, it somehow just grabbed a hold of me and said, I have to do this. And the problem was getting time off work. And so I decided I was going to retire. And I put in my resignation, and the owner of the company's like, what can we do to keep you around for a couple of years? And I said, well, there's this race. And he says, you got it. Now, I wasn't expecting that. He says, what do you need? We'll even sponsor you, on and on and on. And then I was like, oh, crap, this is really going to happen. I had all these excuses before.
Yeah, right.
And so, a lot of encouragement from my employer. And I got out there, and it was just, it was so epic. It was so cool. And it was there, you definitely have to have the right mindset for that. There are times when it just seems absolutely hopeless. Going through Montana, it rained nonstop for 3 days straight, day and night. And, it was the mud that you could not, your tires wouldn't turn anything. You got all this gear on your bike, and you're just soaked to the bone going through the night. Miles upon miles away from the closest town or anything. And, you just got to say, well, I had a little saying in my head through the whole thing when in situations like that is, I like the way this sucks. That was kind of my mantra. And, but and you could never think of how far you just, like in situations like that, it's like, well, I've got dry clothes in my pack. I've got a sleeping bag. If it comes to where I can't go any further, I can hole up somewhere. I have food. It was just awesome. So,
yeah. No, that it's funny how your mind switches from, I'm out on a bike race or I'm out on an adventure, to survival. You're like, okay, what do I need to survive? I have my tent, I have my food, I have warm clothes. And that's interesting that you say that, because you sign up for a bike race and next thing you know, you are in full on survival mode. It sounds like. How long did that race take you?
25 days.
25 days. And
Yeah,
what's the mileage on that? It's like 2,000 something.
I think it's 27. I'm pretty sure it was a lot more for me. I took a lot of wrong turns. And I lost 2 days due to bad decisions, dumb mistakes, rookie mistakes, I guess. And but that's another, when you say where you feel like sometimes it feels hopeless, when you do stuff like that, and then it just adds to but you just got to keep the right attitude. You just got to stay positive and have the right mindset.
Yeah. It's all, you have to stay positive. If you get negative, especially when you're out there getting lost, I would have to guess that in your head a couple times you're going, I may not finish this thing. This thing is humongous. I'm getting lost. I'm making bad decisions. Was there ever any doubt in your mind, or when you say stay positive, that's something you really, really practice?
I had put in my head that quitting was not an option. And, there were times, so I had the wrong pedals for sure. I had egg beaters, and they were really digging into my foot. I don't know if you're familiar with egg beater pedals, but they're minimal pedals. And I was getting a really, really bad case of hot foot. And it was excruciating to turn the pedals. And that went on for about 3 days. And I got into Steamboat Springs, got into a bike shop and bought flat pedals. And then it was like, someone that can't see putting on glasses. It was just like night and day. But there were times, I was almost in tears. It hurt so bad. And I kept thinking, I don't know how I'm going to finish, but I'm going to finish, I just one pedal stroke at a time. And that was a 3-day ordeal. So, but I was going to finish. I broke my thumb in New Mexico. And, I think the last 3 days I rode with a broken thumb. So.
How'd you do that?
Crashed. And the Germans have this saying, "Glück mit Unglück," which means good luck with bad luck. And so I crashed right outside of this little tiny village, and came into the village, and there was this little stand, where they sell like candy bars and Coke and stuff like that. It was just outside somebody's house. And rang the buzzer, and they came down. The lady came down, and I had cut my eye open real bad, and my whole face was filled with blood. And there was 2 guys with me, and she comes down, and she looks at me and says, "You need to go to the hospital." I said, "No, I'm not going to the hospital. I got to finish this thing." She says, "Well, my daughter's a nurse. You need to come up to the house." This little tiny village in the middle of nowhere. They go up there, and she butterflied. She kept saying I need to get stitched. She butterflied that. She checked me for concussion and decided that I couldn't continue on in the condition I was in. I think she thought I had a concussion. And they put us up for the night. And fed us dinner, everything,
Wow.
It's just, and it was like that all the way across the Tour Divide, 2,700 miles, 25 days. I don't care if it was Montana cowboys, going through Indian reservations. This was a Mexican family. Everybody, not a single negative experience whatsoever. It was just amazing. You think, you listen to the news and you think, the whole world is, it was just amazing.
Wow. Yeah, I would have to imagine something like that would restore your faith in humanity almost.
Yes,
I was thinking the exact same thing. You watch the news and it's all doom and gloom and fires and death and robberies, and you're out there actually in it, like sleeping under the stars, and nothing but positive experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody just come out of the woodwork. And, you have these, they call them trackers, spot trackers. And, they actually, you can follow the whole race live. And, the towns we come through, these people are watching, and, you'll come through into towns and they'll call you by name and, offer to clean your bike for you, have food for you, all this kind of stuff. And it's just amazing. There's a lot of trail magic, you're just going along. And this was amazing going through New Mexico, looking for water. Just creeks were all dried up, it's hot, running out of water, go into a campground and start, just try ask some of the campers. And I mean, they fall all over themselves to help you. And, there were times where you're just going down the trail and all of a sudden there's an ice chest out there that says Fourth Tour Divide Riders,
Yeah.
Somebody just left a water, ice chest full of water out there.
Yeah.
So it's amazing.
Yeah. Trail magic. Yeah. You hear about that on the AT and other big trails as well. That's beautiful. So was that race probably the hardest thing you've ever done? I mean, when you're doing that race and you're 2/3 of the way into it, are you feeling like this is the toughest thing I've ever done? Where was your head at when you were closing in on the finish?
It was, it's definitely beat up from the crash towards the end. And, I don't know, I was loving it. I was just loving it. And, there were times I was, I'll be glad when I'm finished. Matter of fact, I think I made this statement: when I'm done with this, I think I'm just going to go home and be an old man. And,
sounds nice when you're out there pedaling.
Yeah. But at the same, it's sometime, as you're getting close to the end, it's like, wow, I'm sad this is going to end, it's kind of, just like anything else, you got, there's times when it's tough, and there's times where you're just loving it, like in a 100-mile race, there's times when you're down really low, and then there's times where you wouldn't want to be anywhere else. And that was kind of how that was. Yeah. Kind of a little bit more to the extreme and longer lasting, but the same thing. And I was just loving it, just being able to, there was a point even coming out of Breckenridge and across the, I forgot the name of the plateau, but you cross Highway 24. And as we were coming across, I could see Pikes Peak, and I'm thinking I can make a left and be home today.
Right. Yeah.
But, there's no way.
Sure. Yeah. I've toyed around with the idea of that race for a long time. It sounds like you would recommend it. How would you, if a client were to come to you and say, I'm training for the Tour Divide, I want to do it in, I don't know, year, 2 years down the road, how would you suggest someone train for something like that?
The biggest thing is test your equipment. Test your packing, test your nutrition, get used to gas station food. But you want to make sure how your equipment works, how to set your tent up, all that, everything. That your tent's actually waterproof, because you will get rained on, you will get snowed on. Find the biggest thing is get out there and do a lot of overnighters. Yeah. That's the key, I think. Yeah. Riding is only part of the training. Doing a lot of overnighters, doing a couple overnighters or 2 or 3 days, so you get used to dealing with that. It's not just riding.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, because your survival and just trying to finish something like that is reliant on all your gear. You're reliant on your bike working. You're reliant on tent not leaking on you, and all your gear being perfect. And I just picture like you have to be able to almost like reach into a gear bag and know where everything is in the dark or in the rain. Right. And it just takes a lot of practice. So that's interesting that's at the top of your list is checking that gear.
Yeah. And especially rain gear, don't don't go cheap on rain gear. Get
Right.
the best there is, because there were two times that I was on the verge of hypothermia, and if I hadn't had the rain gear I had, I think saved my life. And I did come upon a guy at one point who was pretty hypothermic, and had to help him out. And when they do a briefing before the race, at least at the mass start, everybody's talking about the grizzly bears. That's on everybody's mind. But when they did the brief, they said, the grizzly bears aren't the problem. It's hypothermia. And they've had serious cases. I think they've had a couple deaths with hypothermia, but they've had very little, if any, problems with grizzly bears. But they're definitely out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you see any while you were out there?
No, but I saw lots of grizzly bear scat all over the place. We were camping right in the middle of
okay. And then last but not least, I have one last fact to check with you that I read. And again, I think this is you. You were in a race and you got hit by a deer and you broke your back. Is that right?
I wasn't in a race. I was training for a race. But yeah,
for a race.
Actually, I hit the deer. The deer didn't hit me.
Okay.
But yeah, that was.
So you're out training.
Yeah. Yeah, I was descending. I was doing hill repeats, and I was descending. I think you're familiar with Colorado Springs, Cheyenne Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was descending, and
for sure.
Yeah. And I don't know where it came from. It was just, I never saw it approach. I never saw, maybe I was looking at something, or maybe I was spaced out or something, but just all of a sudden there it was. I never had time to hit brakes or anything. And
jeez.
Yeah, I remember laying on the ground thinking, this could be a life-changing event.
Yeah. You broke your back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had, what was it? 5 fractures across 3 vertebrae.
Ooh. And how long ago was this?
July of 2020.
Oh, so pretty recent.
Yeah. So I was training for Utah Epic or something like that. It was like a 700-mile self-supported race across Utah. And I still did it. I didn't finish, but I still I got really lucky. Again, Glück mit Unglück. I hit the deer, was taken to the hospital via ambulance. Doctor come out and said they did x-rays, and I think they did an MRI, but he says, I got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first? I said, I'll take the bad news. He said, you got 5 fractures across 3 vertebrae. And I'm like, oh crap, what's the good news? He said, I expect 100% recovery. I'm like, okay.
That is good news.
He said, the way the fractures, where they are and all that, shouldn't affect you permanently. So,
okay.
And I think within 4 or 5 weeks, I was on the trainer.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's not too bad. Wow. What's in your future, Larry? You're still out there. You're still getting after it. You're coaching people. Do you still have your eye on races or
oh yeah
big adventures? What's on the list?
Oh, definitely. Well, the one thing I'm doing now is coaching a high school mountain bike team. So I started coaching Cheyenne Mountain High School mountain bike team about 8 years ago. Started out, I think when I started, we had 7 kids, and the end of the first year we had 12. After 6 years, we had 60. And then I decided that, having a full-time job, having a coaching gig and competing myself was, it was just too much. And I had, there was a couple that were ready to take over. They're awesome, and they're coaching the team now.
Oh.
So I left, and then I decided I wanted to help kids in, the lower income school, try and start a mountain bike team there. And I was working with an organization called Kids on Bikes. And there's so many hurdles. It would be much easier to get a running team versus a mountain bike, because mountain biking is, face it, it's an expensive sport.
For sure.
And so we were trying to overcome these hurdles, coming up with plans and stuff. And then I was contacted by the league, I believe, or one of the other coaches, saying there were 4 or 5 kids at Air Academy High School, which is in my neighborhood, that were interested in having a mountain bike team. Would you be interested in coaching? And I said, sure, that's my neighborhood. And so I kind of abandoned the project to try and get low income school team started. And so last year was our first year. We had an incredible year, and ended the season with 35 kids. We had one girl finish second in the state. And there's 85 teams, high school teams in Colorado. So,
whoa, holy cow.
It's amazing. The races are amazing. If you ever get a chance to go to one, I highly suggest it. The first one, they haven't got the schedule, but last year the first one was in Leadville. And
oh, cool.
So state championships are in Durango, and it's just awesome. It's just so awesome. But
how far typically are these? How far are these high school races? Like, what's the distance?
They do laps, and a lap is usually 6 miles. So freshman, sophomore do 2 laps.
Okay.
JV do 3, and varsity does 4, which is, that's 24 miles.
Nice.
And
24 miles. Yeah, that's cool.
They're tough courses, and the girls varsity do 3, and I have to take that back. They changed it this year. They reduced it by a lap, so the varsity does 3 now. JV, sophomore, and freshmen do 2, and so the girls do the same amount of laps as the boys now. So
okay.
yeah, it's just so awesome. But yeah, we had a girl, our sophomore girl finished second in the state, and we had a couple. We ended up a couple times in regional races, finishing second as a team, and third. We ended up finishing third in the region, I think. But we had out of the 15 kids we had racing, I think we had 6, maybe. I think we had 8 qualify for state. I'd have to check on that, but that number's in my head for some reason. So it's just awesome. And the kids, one of the reasons I do this is, give back, which sounds kind of corny, but I love seeing these kids develop. And like when I was at Cheyenne Mountain, I remember one kid, some of these kids, they're not really athletes. And, I remember one kid, he was the kind of kid that got picked on all the time and probably bullied. And I noticed he had some climbing ability, and I just harped on him. And, by the time he was a senior, he's racing varsity and one of the best climbers in the state. And I just saw him in this, shy, afraid, being picked on kid to, being this confident, he would even talk to girls, and just complete turnaround, and it's just awesome. So
yeah.
Anyway, that's what I'm doing. And then, so with that, since, the season starts in August and goes all the way through October, I try and get all my races done early. So actually, I'm doing a 24-hour race in 2 weeks. 24 hours Old Pueblo near Tucson.
Okay.
And then I got some other races coming up in the spring. Whiskey 50. There's one out in the Colorado-Utah gravel race, 125 miles.
What's that one called?
Colorado to Utah. CO and then the number 2 UT.
Okay. That sounds cool.
And then the Whiskey 50 down in somewhere in Arizona, I forgot.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So I've got a few races coming up.
Yeah.
I'd love to do Tour Divide again, but
Really?
yeah, I got the commitment with the high school team and all that. So
Sure. Yeah. Well, you never know what the future holds, right?
yeah, that's for sure.
Well, what a great conversation, man. I found it really inspiring and especially, being where you came from, and what you developed into is really fascinating. Like, I love studying human nature and just seeing what it is that drives people. And so, yeah, I've really enjoyed this conversation. And if anyone would like to look you up as a coach and inquire about some coaching, how would they get a hold of you?
Jay, through TrainingPeaks. Right now, I'm not sure I can take any more.
Oh, really?
Okay. I'm full load right now.
Well, that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for doing this, man. I really enjoyed it. And if we ever get the opportunity, maybe you, me, and Brian should get together and do a little mountain biking or something.
That would be awesome.
Over the summer.
Are you going to be out at Leadville this summer?
You bet. 100%.
I'll be there at the bike race for sure. But,
okay.
Yeah. And if you get a chance, you ought to come out to one of the high school races.
I'd like to. They sound really cool.
I think the first race, if it's in Leadville this year, it will be the week after the Leadville run.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it's up there at the college. You'd be blown away by how professional, how fast these kids are.
Really? Yeah. It sounds really cool. Sounds inspiring. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate you. And I hope to get to meet you in person someday. And hopefully we can share a few miles. But,
all right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. Absolutely.
I was really nervous, but it wasn't so bad.
No, it's not so bad. Well, thanks so much, man. Stay in touch and hopefully talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.